Hej och god morgon och vad roligt att vara här till en fredagslive. Och det här är faktiskt andra avsnittet av serien Lek- och lärmiljöer utomhus. Där jag dyker ner i olika ämnen tillsammans med dig. Och idag så handlar avsnittet om att utforma inkluderande lekmiljöer utomhus. Så är du arkitekt och vill få inspiration och mer kunskap om hur du skapar inkluderande lekmiljöer utomhus, då har du kommit rätt. Så jag är nyfiken på dig som tittar och undrar vad för slags utmaningar du har eller stöter på när det kommer till inkludering i utemiljöer. Så kommentera gärna här nere och skriv tankar och funderingar eller bara säg hej. Så med mig idag så har jag Izabela Adamska som är landskapsarkitekt med inkluderingsexpertis från Terma. Så om ni inte visste det så arbetar Terma helt och hållet med att skapa produkter för just inkluderande lekmiljöer utomhus och produkter för rehabilitering. Så vad kan du förvänta dig av dagens webbinar? Webbinariet kommer att vara väldigt effektivt på en halvtimme och det kommer att bli på engelska. Nu börjar jag på svenska och sen så kommer jag också ha lite avslutande ord på svenska. Men jag vet att Izabela har förberett ett kort quiz som öppnar upp för dialog. Och det kommer att bli mycket effektiva och konkreta tips. Så under den här tiden så kommer hon gå igenom allt ifrån varför det är viktigt, vad det betyder, vad är en inkluderande lekmiljö, är inkluderande samma sak som tillgänglig och vanliga designmisstag i processen. Men också exempelvis på produkter och i slutet så kommer en bonus. Och här vill du stanna kvar till slutet. För hon kommer också prata kort om växter på den tillgängliga lekplatsen. Och jag kommer att dela med mig av en länk där man kan gå in och se i efterhand också vilka typ av växter och tänk som hon menar. Så för dig som är ny, jag heter Rebecka Öberg och arbetar som landskapsarkitekt på Lek-och-lar. Och där stöttar jag arkitekter med produktfrågor, ritningsfrågor och visualiseringar. Och Lek-och-lar är ju ett kunskapsföretag. Och det är därför jag har bjudit in till dagens avsnitt som är helt kunskapsbaserat. Och grejen är att vi släpper otroligt mycket roliga produkter. Och Terma har ju mycket inkluderingsprodukter som finns faktiskt i vårt sortiment. Så bara för att ni ska få en bild av vad de arbetar med så vill jag visa först en produkt som många arkitekter uppskattar. Och det är det här inkluderande hjul med känslouttryck. Och det är ett fint exempel på hur de arbetar när de tar fram produkter. De här ansiktena på panelen är taktila och lätta att avläsa. Och det speglar våra känslor och har en rotation i sig. Så oavsett om man inte har hittat sitt språk så blir det en kanal till kommunikation. Men nu tycker jag vi bjuder in Izabela och så drar vi igång.
Hello everyone, thank you Lekola and thank you Rebecka for introducing me to your webinar series. I'm really glad I can share with you some knowledge today. I'm a landscape architect and I work in Utforma as product manager. So I wanted to share with you some practical tips and some general information about how to design inclusive playground using devices, but not only devices. So so let's start. All right. Okay, so let's design inclusive play today. The first thing is why inclusive play is so important. Because most of the playgrounds we can find around us are playgrounds not accessible, unfortunately. And most of the children with disabilities, especially locomotor system disabilities, they can't access the playgrounds. And looking from the perspective of parents of disabled children, they are avoiding the playgrounds. That's why we can't see too many disabled children on the playgrounds, because for them it's a problem to explain the child that unfortunately at this playground there is nothing for you to play with. So in this situation, I think it's high time to change this situation and to include the disabled children into playground areas, because both groups can benefit. The healthy children can learn more about disabilities, they can be more empathetic, and they can learn how to help, how to cooperate, and they will be getting used to children with disabilities. And for disabled children is really unique opportunity to integrate and to feel included, to feel part of the society, and later to grow as person, feeling equal and having the same rights. Because playing is so basic activity for children that we don't even think that it can be forbidden from any kind of child in the childhood. And this is what also say the law, that rights of the children and rights of persons with disabilities, they say that they should have equal access, but unfortunately, in practice, these provisions are only applied to able-bodied children. So this is why inclusion happens. So when you look at the subject from the legal point of view, it's not a choice of designer should the playground be accessible or not. It's a law and it's a must. But the problem is how to do it the right way, because there are many playgrounds designed, let's say, inclusive way, but in practice, unfortunately, they are not welcoming and they are not accessible at all. So what is inclusion? Most of the playgrounds that unfortunately we have in the public area are playgrounds that they are exclusive. It means that the people without disabilities, they can play, they can access, and they can use everything that is installed in the playground. But people with disabilities, they are not included. So there is nothing interesting for them, so they don't access this area. Segregation is a step forward, you can say, because you're creating areas that they can allow users, but parts of the group, which means that people with disabilities, they have their own playground, and people without disabilities, they have their own playground. They are separate in this one area. So it means that they can't actually play together, and the playgrounds are distant from each other. And integration is something more. So you have one area, but you have one place on this area that usually equipped with devices only for people with disabilities. So in practice, it's really difficult to manage this kind of area, because you will never be able to supervise children without disabilities enough, so they will not access the place where the devices meant only for people with disabilities are installed. So this situation is very dangerous from the norm point of view and practical point of view, because some of the devices designed only for people with disabilities are dangerous and might cause problem for children without disabilities, because they are using them in the wrong way, and usually they are not, the usage is not clear enough for children without disabilities. And inclusion as a perfect connection of all these previous features, because on one area you have users with without disabilities, with disabilities, seniors, adults. Anyone can access this place, and anyone can feel safe and be safe, and doesn't need extra supervision, and doesn't need fencing and dividing this area into smaller parts to provide safety and something to play with. And we also have to remember that at any stage of life we can suffer disability. It's not only about children on wheelchairs. We have to remember about that, because usually accessible playground is labeled with a child with on a wheelchair, but we have to also remember that child on a wheelchair can be assisted by a parent on a wheelchair, or for example a wheelchair user can be, like teenager, can be assisted with mother or father or carer or his siblings, or for example that it will be a grandmom with a healthy child, but the grandmom can be using some walking aids and needs also safe place to enter and to have and to spend time with her grandkids in an efficient and pleasant way. So we also have to remember that playground is not an area only for children. And who can benefit from designing this area in inclusive way? Actually everyone, because you can have many configurations of the users. It can be child with disability, healthy child, parent with disability, disabled adult, or senior, or all of them at the same time, or in different configurations. And also we have to remember that, as I mentioned at the beginning, for people with disabilities, playing on the playground is also kind of rehabilitation. Many kind of rehabilitation, actually educational, cognitive therapy, vestibular therapy, and coordination therapy, and general kinesiotherapy, and social therapy, which is really important. And choosing the devices and choosing the way you design the playground, you should also have in mind what kind of extra benefits you can provide for the users with disabilities, so they will be playing and not feeling that they are being rehabilitated, because every day of the child with disability is a day spent being rehabilitated everywhere, in the clinic, at school. So on the playground they should just play, but it's better to always choose something that gives them extra benefit and extra features. So what is inclusive playground? How it should be designed, and what really makes it inclusive? So it's complicated, and it's not only about choosing the right devices. First of all, it's about general location, because we have to remember that the playground is a part of bigger public area. So it has to be connected with like main communication routes, or it has to be accessible from, let's say, the estates where people live, and they will be accessing the playground from this side. Or for example, there is a school, maybe integrational school, or they have to access this place from the parking or from the bus station, because we have to remember that people suffering disabilities, they might be driven to the playground by their parents or school. Later, we have to think about choosing the right devices, of course, allowing everyone to play, but this I will tell you a little bit more about it later. And surfaces, of course, accessible to everyone, equally to person on a wheelchair, but also for children without disabilities, and for, let's say, seniors or people using walking aids. And there are some other factors that I will tell you about them later. About accessible surface, you have to remember that every playground has to comply with the norm EN 1176. So you have to remember that surface around the devices is connected with the device itself, because the free fall height, if it's more than mentioned in the norm, it requires a certain cushioning area. So not always you can use, let's say, pavement, concrete pavement, which would be an accessible area for, let's say, most of the users. Sometimes you have to choose rubber, even if you wanted to make this area more nature friendly. But unfortunately, you have to find a way how to deal with the free fall height area and accessible surface. So here on the right, I wanted to show you the table that I was trying to compare all the possible surfaces on the playground. And to mark them if they are accessible or not. Because sometimes, like designers, they choose grass as the best option for this playground because it's a kind of cushioning area, and it looks accessible. But unfortunately, if you by yourself have to push a child on a wheelchair, or you have to walk with a walking aid on the grass, then you know straight away that it's not accessible at all. So this is what I wanted to give you, some practical tips that maybe it can inspire you, and maybe you can look at the surfaces on the playground from a little bit different point of view, and maybe you can combine them, connect them in a way that they will be still accessible, but they will still be more natural and maybe in some parts more green. And design challenges. Questions that usually you ask yourself is like, do really people with disabilities, they need a special area to play? And if you want to design an inclusive playground, do you need to choose devices that are designed only for disabled people? And is it possible to meet the needs of healthy and disabled people on one area? And these questions I would like to answer, and at the end maybe you will know the answers by yourself already. First, I wanted to show you the design mistakes. Unfortunately, this is the common playground picture that you can see anywhere around the world, I'm afraid. So the sand here is something that stops people on wheelchairs or with walking aids or seniors from entering this area. So whatever you make, even if you chose the best devices, but you designed sand as a surface, they will not access this place. And using high curbs is also a big problem because it's a barrier that they will not be able to cross. Choosing the devices that they are designed only for people for disabilities, like you can see the swing on the right, is not a good idea also, because when you install it on the public playground, you can be 100% sure that healthy children will occupy this device and use it in a not safe way. So in Poland, we had several accidents on this kind of swings because unfortunately the healthy children, unsupervised, because they don't have to be supervised on the public playground, they've been using the swing and they had serious accidents. And again, some problems with using accessible devices, but in not accessible way. For example, the middle picture is elevated sandbox, which is a great device for the playground, but unfortunately it's designed on the sand. So people on wheelchairs or with walking aids, again, they will not be able to enter this place. So they will be watching probably how others are playing from the pavement, which is the only accessible surface for them here. Or the picture on the right, when you can see the accessible roundabout, but unfortunately, there is only one narrow pavement that leads to the device. So you can access on the wheelchair that you can see that it's here, only from this place. But it should be, if somebody like designed this device on the same level with the surface, and the surface was accessible, for example, made of EPDM or anything else, accessible, of course, they could enter this device from many sides and it would be way more accessible than it's now. For example, using trampolines and using them as accessible device only because it's supposed to be on the same level as the surface around. It's a mistake also, because even entering the trampoline is dangerous because personal wheelchair can just collapse. But the second thing, when you're jumping and there is no railings that this person can support himself or herself, they can easily collapse and have a serious accident on this kind of device. So if you're using trampolines, it's better to use them with the railings and a little bit more narrow, so the person on the wheelchair can hold the trampoline on like support himself from both sides. Also mentioning the seesaws. For example, here you have an example that there is access only from one side, but this device is promoted as the device accessible for 2 wheelchairs. So the question is how the second wheelchair will enter. First, if there is a grass and sand around, and second, if one wheelchair enters from this side and this platform is up. So this situation that you can see down this picture is impossible to achieve because 2 wheelchairs cannot enter the same device at the same time, because one will be always heavier and will keep the second platform up in the air. So what I wanted to show you how to design an inclusive playground for all. I'm using usually the method of dividing the area into smaller areas. They can be theme play, they can be, for example, sensory play and active play. And on one area, then you start combining the devices this way that anyone who enters will be able to choose for himself or for herself something that they can play with. So dividing the area into smaller parts that allow you to choose kind of play that you want to play is a good method to design an inclusive area. And here is an example of some devices installed on the same level as the surface is, and they are also including quiet places that you can rest and sensory play with colors, with shades, with light, and with, of course, plants, because they are a very important part of the inclusive playground. And also choosing the devices, as you see presented here, you should use something that allows more than one user, because our experience and our informations given by therapists and parents of children with disabilities and children with disabilities themselves, they confirm that they feel better if they can play together on one platform, for example, with other people, with siblings or with parents, because sometimes the child, for example, on a wheelchair, is intellectually healthy and wants to have this communication and wants to play together with a parent, but unfortunately his physical conditions are not allowing him to operate the device. So in this situation, the parent can move the device and operate it, and person on the wheelchair can experience the movements and rehabilitation, because swinging is a kind of vestibular therapy. The same situation on the roundabout, just remembering that the surface should be allowing users to enter from all sides of the device. And also playing with colors, with lights, but accessible way that you can access from all the sides again, and that it's on the same level with the surface. And on the right, you can see an example of the seesaw, that the person on the wheelchair is on the right side, and it depends on the weight of the person on the right side, how many children or adults should access the second platform to lift the platform with the wheelchair up. So it's the situation like you've seen before, that two platforms are up in the air is not happening here. So it's safe and accessible, because you can choose the side that you want to play on, because when there is no wheelchair user, healthy children can, or for example, children with Down syndrome or some other disabilities that they don't affect the locomotor system, they can access from this side and they can play together. And of course, installing other devices like panels, like smaller devices on one pillar, or for example, elevated sandboxes, they should be installed on the height, allowing a person on a wheelchair to access the device. So you have to remember that the height of the toy allows or not playing of children with disabilities, but also young children and adults together, because you have to remember that sometimes teenagers with disabilities, they also want to play, and they also want to benefit from these devices. And of course, places where you can rest are really important, because not always you're playing actively on the playground, and you have to remember that some children with autism or other problems, sensory problems, they might need a safe place and quiet place to have some rest and a break. So I think benches, and especially accessible benches, are a good choice, but also they have to be designed this way that users sitting on the bench, they will not be disturbing people walking on the main communication road, and they will be safe, and they will have the safe place to spend time on. And of course, playing with plants, with green, is a very important factor of inclusive playground, because playing with green and experiencing nature is very important part of sensory therapy and proper development of the children, disabled or not disabled. So it should be a stage of any child life, and we should remember that allowing to play without devices, just playing with plants, is also very important way of development, and very nice way of playing for children. So in this situation, if you wanted to check more, and if you're interested what kind of plants are advised to be designed on the playground, I can invite you to the blog section on our website, and here you can find a little bit more. But here I wanted to show you three kinds of plants that they are really advised to be planted on the playgrounds. For example, salix, which is really common and resistant plant, and can be designed any kind of way, like tunnels, like tents, or just something like bench, fences to play with. And also grasses, tall grasses, they can be used as place to hide, as place to hide and seek. And if they are moved by wind, they also give you really nice and calming sound of their leaves. And plants with big leaves, they can be used as hides also, or parts of theme play. They can be umbrellas, they can be caps, they can be anything your imagination allows you to play with. And also sensory play is very important. So if you can design sensory paths, it's also important to remember that railings are allowing people with disabilities to use them. because some people are using wheelchairs, but they have ability to walk and they should develop it. So experiencing different different materials, different structures, and different temperatures under their feet is important part of the rehabilitation, but also fun. So now I think it's time to answer the questions again. True or false? People with disabilities require a special area to play. No, they don't. They should play with other people at the same area, giving them right to choose what they want to play with, devices or nature, accessible surfaces, all of these things, they should be designed this way that healthy children and children with disabilities, they will be able to play on the same area. It's also the best economical option of playground design, because you don't need to design two different areas equipped with two different sets of devices, because you are designing one area, equipping it with one set of devices, and it's best for everyone. And if you want to design an inclusive playground, do you need to choose devices designed for disabled people? No, and you shouldn't do it. You should choose only devices, accessible devices, devices that they allow all users to use them, because choosing devices designed only for disabled people, usually it's a big problem to complying with the norm, and also it's not the safest option for children without disabilities, and they will be using them for sure. And is it possible to meet the needs of healthy and disabled people in one area? I hope after this presentation, you know it's possible, and you will be doing it, and you will be, I hope you are inspired enough to search for your own ways how to meet the needs of people with disabilities and without disabilities in one area. So here I wanted to thank you for your attention. And if you had any kind of questions, I'm sure that Lekola will support you and will answer all the questions about inclusive play now. So thank you again.
Thank you, Izabela. And I also wanted just to say that it was a really fun thing, the thing with the true or false. And I also want to say to you who are watching this, like, comment below, what were your thoughts on this? Was it true or false? What was your reaction? I want to see your thoughts on this. And for those who wasn't in the beginning, I can just summarize a bit short what Izabela was talking about, and I have also some question. And also write down in the comments if you have some questions, so we can have a follow-up on that. So Izabela was talking about that families avoid playground areas. So this is number one. And that's why also we wanted to invite Izabela as well. And also just thank you for showing us like how we can design a playground that is inclusive. So I think your pictogram showed really well the four different pictograms, what is inclusive playground. And I think your tip was really good. She touched four things. So when it comes to the inclusion, it's not only about the children, it's also about people who are in rehabilitation. So she was talking about, like, okay, you have to look at the general location, you have to look at the devices, and you have to look at the surfaces and other things. So what I thought was a good tip, the first one was actually when we talk about surface, the asphalt connected to rubber. So that was a thing I think you touched it really good. And also a design mistake. As you said, we often maybe have trampolines in the playgrounds, but without any railings. And that is something I think also was super good. Tip number 3 was about dividing the playground into smaller areas. I thought that was also a really good example. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about sensory play. And we saw some lovely pictures. Can you add some thoughts on and develop more on the sensory playground?
Yeah, so I think sensory play is really important, not only for children with disabilities, it's also very important for healthy children because it's part of the healthy development. And my experiences, like watching children using the playground, the sensory playground that I've designed, that they can choose whether they want to play with sound or with color or with structures and different surfaces, and experiences different things like to touch or to listen. And it's really important because it gives them very wide opportunity for developing imagination and theme play and playing together and helping each other. And it also gives very, very good option for teachers to have like lessons outdoors with children. So this foundation that I designed the playground for, they are performing some therapy and educational classes outdoors. So for the teachers, it's really good because they don't have to stay always indoors, and because the children, they are getting bored with sitting always in the class, and they can have such classes outdoors. So it's a really good thing, I think, and they can also benefit from being outside and experiencing nature. And this is why I also mentioned plants, because they are very important about sensory play, about sounds, about colors, about taste, about smell. So it's all together, and yeah, so I think it's actually sensory playground is like really good example of an inclusive playground for all.
Yeah, and I also wanted to comment to you about the blog tip with the plants. So we're gonna have a link in the below as well, so you can follow. So just scroll in the comments and you will find it as well. So Izabela, do you have any more tips or tricks or conclusions more? Or yeah?
Yeah, I just would like to really encourage you to try to design inclusive way. And if you have any kind of problems and you face any kind of doubts how to do it, or you can contact Lekola, or you can contact any kind of like foundation that is around you, that I'm sure they will be more than happy to share with you their experiences, because you are making a life of disabled children better for now and for the future. So it's a really good thing.
That's perfect. And thank you so much. And I want to, for those who are with us in the end, I'm going to switch over to Swedish and just have a little bit of end conclusions in Swedish as well. And a big applaud to Izabela. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Jag vill också bara samla ihop oss lite på slutet här också. Jag tycker att det är så intressant att dyka ner i sådana här ämnen tillsammans med dig. Och framöver så kommer nästa tema med största sannolikhet handla om belysning av lekplatser. Och det här är ju intressant eftersom vi går in i en mörkare tid. Och nästa webbinar planerar jag ha i januari. Och jag hoppas att du uppskattade det här avsnittet om inkludering, och gillade du det du såg och hörde, så likea gärna där nere. Så vet jag att det har gått hem. Och du får jättegärna tipsa om ämnen som vi ska ta upp här. Och jag finns på rebecka.oberg@lekolar.se. Tack för idag. Vi ses!